You get caught up in that, and then you lose sight of what you're really supposed to be doing. And what we're supposed to be doing is what we do when we sit down at the in our studies alone. Mm-hmm. And that is confronting the fear, being vulnerable, trying our best to bring the full weight of our bibliography to bear on the subject at hand. For me, trying to transition, which you've helped me do, transition from the straitjacket of our training, academic training, into a kind of writing that can tap the depth of the emotion that informs why we came to do this stuff in the first place. Right? And what follows from that follows from it. Because today, everybody's excited to see me. And tomorrow, nobody will give a damn.
But I want to sit in that space, though, for a little bit longer.
People why?
Be excited to see you. Because that's an important function. I think that there's something that we need. And by we, I mean Black folks. We need to witness about ourselves. That I think intellectuals serve and artists serve a different function than politicians and entertainers in that respect. And it's not just, yes, there's the educational function, but it's also about how to be, right? Like it's also about how to actualize as a person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. It's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
Because of the medium, right? It's one thing if it's
face to face.
It's
in the book, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's when South to America wins the National Book Award and you get up and you said Alabama girl to Birmingham girl, and everybody in that crowd from the South knew exactly what you were saying, and there was this pride emanating. It's an unmediated moment in some ways, and what I mean by unmediated, because of course you have the National Book Award folk, and that's whatever that organization is all about. But television,
right? It's a
different,
particular medium.
It's a particular medium.
Yeah,
right. So what does it mean to do public intellectual work through that form, right? And the fact that people see you, right? And what is that cathartic experience like, right? It's like, you remember when I was in undergrad, Farrakhan was making his way across HBCUs.
Yes. And we would across a whole bunch of students.
Right,
but he came to Yale.
I know, and he would come and he would speak for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And he would light folk up.
Yes.
And it would be this cathartic experience. Black folk works. Oh, he told the truth. And then we would go back into our worlds. Nobody was joining the nation.
Well, this is Martin Nielsen wrote a piece about it.
Nobody was joining the nation.
He did this study. He was like, do Black people really believe what Farrakhan is saying? Right? And no, the answer. But there was something very powerful about hearing it.
So I take your point about, there's something we need to hear from the entertainer, from the intellectual. I understand it. Mm-hmm. There's something cathartic about, in a world where it seems like we can't be, that we see somebody actually being.
Okay.
So I get that.
Okay, but I'm pushing.
But
back
I'm worried about it.
But I'm pushing because so we talk about television because you've been on television
a lot,
and you entered into that space very differently from anybody else. And I will say, and you will probably remember this, I was cautious about you being on TV so much.
It's true.
And I was like, be careful. You get your time of writing in. Don't do this too much, right?
Right.
But what you did was you figured out how to manage the time and to still, in a way that allowed you to still be an intellectual. There was nobody, so you do these citations, right? Baldwin, Whitman, Emerson, Baker. You would cite people and bring, so there's always these texts that are present. So you could say something in a concise fashion, but you pointed people to things to read all the time. You've always pointed, and shift the terms of the conversation. So not quite catharsis in that, but modeling a relationship to being a person who is engaged in the political world, right? So that it's not just, am I going to vote for this policy or that, but what do I read to help me make decisions about how I'm going to be as a citizen? How can I think about these issues differently than the terms set by the major political parties? Those kinds of, and to me, that's different. And maybe this is also just my disinclination to, I don't share much with Farrakhan in terms of the way that he sees the world, although I do think he's very charismatic. But I do think that it's not catharsis so much as, I don't know, like, I guess I think there's something really valuable about being able to imagine what it is to be a learned person. What does it mean to be an intellectually and politically engaged person? That's not about necessarily the job, but about, like you said before, the vocation, how you're going to live your life.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. In the context of discussion around fear, one still wonders.
Sure.
And then you find yourself in these moments where you've seen me, where I'm wringing my hands. They haven't called me.
Sure.
What does that mean? And you get caught up in it and all of this other stuff. So I think it's we're all too human at the end of the day. Right, yeah. But I think this question of, will we be able to give the next generation resources? Will it matter? Both speak to the nature of the problem that you and I are having trouble wrapping our minds around. Trying to find descriptive language. Right? When I read you, particularly the new book that's coming out, we won't talk about the particulars. Give them the title again.
Black and Blues.
Black and Blues. It's your insistence on loving us, and in so many ways showing how we've managed in the midst of the absurd, in the midst of all of this ugliness, to live beautifully.
Yes.
To live powerfully over time. How do we take this category, which was imposed on us, and the us is differentiated, it's nuanced, how do we take this category and do what we've done with it? Right? It's a marvelous account.
Thank you.
In relation to now. I mean, we're still doing beautiful things, I suppose. Right? I'm not. For some reason, I'm getting worried because I'm sounding like an Afro pessimist, and I'm not, because that's a different claim.
No, you don't sound like an Afro pessimist.
But you see what I mean?
No, it's. Well, I mean, I think it's an answer. I mean, I think in different ways, both of us in the work that we're doing now are responding to the pessimist claim, right? Which is that, it's a wrap. There's no. The
whole thing is predicated upon anti-blackness and da. Yeah.
And I'm not a pessimist, I'm not a universalist, but what I do believe deeply is that, European empires decided to make this thing called Black, right? Black people, put us in this category where all these different cultures and languages and identities, they put us in this category. And many of us have spent many years fighting against that category in various ways and differentiating between ourselves. But inside the category, with all of the imposition of violence and disdain and degradation, the beauty is actually, to create beauty in that is actually the highest human achievement. It's not a universalist claim, but it's something about what is so fundamentally human, and that's why the entire world is captivated by our imagination.